Good morning, brothers and sisters, and especially in Denmark, Norway, and I want to have a small notebook here. So I started here with many Nordic friends. I have good memories from my start in Unification Movement in Denmark. You had a school south of Copenhagen, and I remember we had this 7-day workshop. Very good experience. And Norway, we were living in Göteborg, so almost every spring we took our children and went up for a workshop. Alf Mønnesdal's summer cottage, I remember we stayed there. Okay, so that's sort of the starting point. And also I want to say I cannot see if you have any guests. So if you have guests, please help me to explain afterwards if there are any words that might be needing an explanation. So topic today is Wolli Wonbon. And the Wolli Wonbon was the first written divine principle by True Father. And of course there have been over the years many versions. I brought a couple of them. I'm sure you are very familiar with this. Young One Kim's 1960. She published this in English, this is in Swedish, but that became sort of a standard book. And she made many revisions of that. I think it's had almost every year, 60, 61, 62, all the way up to 70. She made new improvements. And then we have this one. That's the classical 1973 version. I'm sure you all know. And then we have the 1996, this one. And this is the same text as 2005. We have this 3-color version. So it's the same text from 1996. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the slides. I'll have to do this one. Okay. Here's the first one here. So we are in the year of the blue dragon, as you know, the symbol of growth and expansion. And this is interesting because it's really an encouragement for us to grow and to witness and to expand. And this is the year 12 of the Chongelguk. And here we see True Father, True Mother, Samyang Moon, Hakyahan Moon. And they are reading or looking through this Wolli Wonbon that he wrote 1951 while living as a refugee in Busan. And it's the only book that he wrote in his own hand. Almost 700 pages, covers all aspects of divine principle and lays out a roadmap of his mission. You know, I had thought when I sort of reflected over this this picture and this text, that can you imagine if Jesus had written a sort of you know, in business we say letter of intent. If you make an agreement, you know, how to produce something, or you have a new product, you write down what you plan, what you want to do with this new thing. So can you imagine if Jesus had made something similar in a papyrus or this scroll that they had at that time? That would be the most treasured artifact in the Christian history. And you know, we would have a totally different New Testament. So in this comparison, we can see the value of Wolli Wonbon. This is True Father's messianic mission outlaid in 1951 when he was all alone. So I will go through the history a little bit here. But in 1951, he was in Busan. He was all alone. He had only one disciple, and that was sort of before his public mission started, second time. So my main source for this presentation is from UTS, a faculty roundtable that Dr. Andrew Wilson held in 2022. And then he said, this is interesting, Wolli Wonbon soon to be published. And he said in this webinar, he said that I would not hold this webinar if it wasn't close to publication. And this is interesting because now we're in 2024. So this was some time ago and over 1 year. So I will come back to that again. There's a lot of obstacles to publish this in English. Okay, so here's something True Father. He mentioned that divine principle for the early disciples. He said that this is natural law. He called divine principle natural law. And here you see a page from the Wolli Wonbon. And I'll come back to that also. So this is a timeline with the different versions. And we already talked about that. So I will not say anything more. And there's been many versions, but the original one is this Wolli Wonbon. What is Wolli Wonbon? This is Dr. Andrew Wilson's word. And it's the first manuscript, that's Wonbon. We have some Koreans here, maybe you can confirm, and of divine principle, Wolli. Is that correct? Somehow? You want to comment? We have one Korean here. Yeah, he's nodding, so yeah, we accept that. And here is the situation then around 48 and 1950, 51. So True Father, Sun Myung Moon, he started his mission 1945, and he was not receiving much support. So 1946 he went to Pyongyang, and there was many spiritual groups prepared there. You can read in the Chambo Mugyong, you can read some fantastic testimonies of the people who received him there. Even, I think I mentioned this before, there was even ladies who said they had met him before he was born. How is that possible? That's God's, sort of God's miracle. So God can do this, you could say, twist with the time. And then he was sentenced to prison in Hungnam, suffered, almost died. So that was sort of I call it like the end of the first providence that was going to go on from 1945 to 52. And then it was a restart, and he was saved by the UN forces. And then we had the Korean War, 1950 to 53. And 1951, he was in Busan, down in the right corner. And there he started to write Wolli Wonbon. So the early members in the 50s, they hand copied this Wolli Wonbon from each other. So that time, I mean, Korea was very poor, so they had to do by hand. And here on this middle picture, you can see True Father, Sun Myung Moon, and there's some I could recognize President Yu behind him, David Kim, Yang Woon Kim, first missionary to USA, and Lady Dr. Kim. And Wonpil Kim on the right picture, there's at the bottom, Wonpil Kim, his first disciple. Only from North Korea, the only one from North Korea. Okay, so this is True Father's words then from 2003. When I wrote Wolli Wonbon, I wrote in a condensed form. The content of even one page requires dozens of pages of explanation. An ordinary person is simply not able to understand it deeply, even after reading and reflecting on it. So here we can see the reason why it has taken so long time. And we can compare, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls that I found that took also some 20 years before publication. So the academics, they take time because they want to be right. Everything should be correct before going public. Yeah. And he says here he wrote in a condensed form. So I will come back to that and explain more in detail. Wolli Wonbon has great significance in that it was written in True Father's own handwriting. It is the earliest manuscript of divine principle in existence. In the early days of the church, some of his disciples transcribed Wolli Wonbon and shared their copies with others, passing them around. I wrote a book about the principle, Wolli Wonbon, at Bommildong in Busan, overlooking the harbor. I first noted the main points points in outline form, and then started writing. I wrote the ideas in condensed form like poetry. Since I just wrote the essential points, people could not easily understand it unless I explained the main points to them. This is how I wrote the text. So you know, Reverend Yu, he was the first divine principle and the main divine principle teacher in the beginning. So even he could not read and work from this text. So True Father had to explain the text for him. Here's from his wife, Mrs. Yu, a testimony to God's word. She was living with other members together with True Father in the early 50s. And she said it was like he was like a good brother. So they were very close. They really were, you know, like one family. And she has written in this book, she has written many times. I can recommend that book. It's really good. Because there are things that only she heard, and she is sharing it here. So she says, the younger sister of John the Baptist did not play any role in the providence, and we cannot even find a trace of her name in the Bible. Jesus knew the course that he had to take and begged his mother 3 times in his life, at 17, 27, and 30 years old, to be wedded with the younger sister of John the Baptist. However, Mary turned down her son's plea completely. Mary was a single woman when she became pregnant. Therefore, Jesus was an illegitimate child and was in a low position. This is interesting. The World Scripture came in 2 versions, version 1 and version 2. And this version 2, that also Dr. Wilson was one of the authors of, he included parts of Wolli Wonbon that was translated at that time, 2007. So this is interesting. This is like something that is not in Divine Principle, the black books. Among the disciples, Jesus loved Judas Iscariot in particular. He made Judas his object partner through whom to restore God's primary will. Jesus intended to use him in order to erect a woman in the position of Eve. But to do this, they should fulfill the roles of the personages involved in the fall. Specifically, God's will requires that Jesus set up Judas' wife as the new Eve. This woman was Mary Magdalene. She had been Judas' lover, but now as a disciple, she was absolutely obedient to Jesus. So just as Satan had taken Eve from Adam, Jesus as Adam planned to take Judas' woman to be the new Eve. That way, the 3 of them would fulfill God's will according to the principle. So just as Satan had taken Eve from Adam, Jesus as Adam planned to take Judas' woman to be the new Eve. Comment from Wilson. Wolli Wonbon does not say marry Jesus. He talks about restoring the fall. This is his comment. For me, this sounds a little bit awkward, because if you restore Eve, then she could also be the new Eve, the new true parents. This is my interpretation, but we have different points of view here. Yeah. Accordingly, Jesus first acknowledged that Mary Magdalene belonged to Judas Iscariot. Then Jesus commands the providence by choosing her to be his Eve. While this fundamental providence was going on, in the meantime, Satan was fully on the attack, mobilizing Pharisees and scribes against Jesus. Regardless, had Judas Iscariot trusted, obeyed, and attended Jesus in this matter, they would have established the foundation for the fulfillment of God's will. But Judas was full of discontent and confronted Jesus. That was the beginning of his rebellion against his teacher, which culminated when he sold out the one-man eunuch in all human history for a mere 30 pieces of silver. This makes more sense if you think like love between man and woman can be very strong, and jealousy. So this makes more reasonable that Judas was upset with Jesus. So that was the reason behind Judas' betrayal. This must have been after John the Baptist's sister fell away as potential. So we don't know if John the Baptist's sister was to be the bride of Jesus. That's another conclusion of Dr. Wilson. So it's interesting to summarize this a little bit. So, True Father, 1951, he mentions this about Judas, Mary Magdalene, and Jesus. That should have been restoration. And True Father in the 70s, he gave a speech in USA. I'm sure you heard about this, where he says clearly that John the Baptist's sister was the potential bride of Jesus. So we can think a little bit here that why is that not included in the Wolli Wonbon about John the Baptist's sister? And the opposite also, when True Father speaks about this in the USA, why doesn't he mention then Judas, Mary Magdalene, and Jesus? This is, I don't have any answer to that, but I'm just sharing that with you. That's a fact. Okay. So here, again, at the bottom here, please listen to the full 1-hour presentation by Dr. Andrew Wilson. And you can easily find it if you search Wilson, Wolli Wonbon. I have the link there also. I will go through some of his slides now. So there's many more. So I strongly suggest you watch his webinar to get more details. I'll check my notes. No, one moment. Okay, so first manuscript of the principle. Father wrote it by hand in Busan, you know already, 51. And the first section had the title, From the One to All Beings. Finished it 1 year later on May 10, 1952. Only after finishing it, he began witnessing. And he met Mrs. Kang the next day. So it's interesting that he really had this timing of finishing the Wolli Wonbon, and then he knew his public mission would restart again. So I call it, this is just my vocabulary, but I call it the first providence was from 1945 to 52, that failed, and because it was rejected, and then this is the second starting with the Wolli Wonbon. The deepest, most comprehensive text of the principle. It talks about principle of ideal, history, world wars, critique of communism, Korea in God's providence. And this is interesting, science, over 100 pages. Let's see if I got, no, I didn't get that. Okay, so the science is about atoms, electromagnetism, psychology, and other things that is not in the black Divine Principle book. So this is another reason why this would be interesting to have translated and read. Yeah? Looking forward to that. Here is an example from comparing exposition of Divine Principle with Wolli Wonbon. So it talks about object partner. In EDP, exposition of Divine Principle, object partner is a position relative to the subject partner. Subject partner, object partner speaks to the need to restore proper position after the fall. Object consciousness is humble, serving, and attending. God, through parents, is a subject partner. We obey and serve as object partners. Emphasizes position, not quality of relationship. And yeah, I can feel somehow, you know, I make my own thinking into this also, so you don't have to agree with me, but I think this has been a problem in our movement sometimes. So it's more about position thinking, and that can make hurt feelings. While Wolli Wonbon, that True Father wrote, in Wolli Wonbon, object partner is about the ideal of relationships. One's object partner is one's second self, living for each other. My object partner's joy is my joy. My object partner's sorrow is my own sorrow. Some object partners in our life, spouse, children, parents, and God. God is my object partner, and I'm God's object partner. So here again we see that love is the foundation for something to work. Yes, it's wrong there, yeah. So we have to contact Dr. Wilson. He must update his slide. Correct, Kayo. God is my subject partner, and I'm God's object partner. Good point, good comment. Honors the victory of the cross. By accepting the cross as an indemnity condition, Jesus paid the price for the sins of history. The cross began the 3-day course to the resurrection that launched Christianity. Jesus confronted Satan and won. Compare Moses' 3-day course that began with his confrontation with Pharaoh. It made a condition for God to release his people. Despite God's disappointment that people did not support Jesus to fulfill the entirety of the will, the cross was still a victory. And he wrote in Journal of Unification Studies, this victory of the cross. So this is, I think, is a reminder of us when we talk to Christians that the cross and the resurrection, that is the important point. The resurrection is a victory, and spiritual salvation is a victory. Even though we also add, of course, that there was even higher mission if he had married and become true parents. Okay, I need some water. One moment again. I can't take myself. Thank you. Okay. So, about change of blood lineage. Meaning of circumcision in EDP, remove fallen blood. Physical circumcision of the Jews points to the fundamental indemnity condition to restore the fall. Zipporah circumcising her son saved Moses' life. Jesus needs a condition of circumcision to keep from going to the cross. So we're talking about the heart, circumcision of the heart, right? In Jesus' course, if required, circumcision of the heart, actual condition to reverse the fall. Mother Mary needed to circumcise her heart if she was to procure Jesus' bride. Judas Iscariot needed to circumcise his heart to let go of Mary Magdalene so she could unite with Jesus, Adam, and restore the position of fallen Eve. Conclusion is true parents. Wolli Wonbon begins with the God of duality, male and female. Adam and Eve failed to realize God's duality. Lord of the second Adam's mission is to inaugurate the original father and mother. People living in the world at this time should build the eternal kingdom of heaven centering on the original parents. Who are the true parents? The original father will be inaugurated by the Lord of the second Advent. He is the eternal father, and his bride will be the eternal mother. With them, the cosmos will welcome a new beginning. So conclusion, the principle talks in the beginning about the God of duality, man and woman, father and mother, true parents. That is the mission of both Jesus and the second coming. That also applies for us, of course, as tribal messiahs. We are going to be true parents with small capitals. So, value of true mother. Study of Wolli Wonbon gave me confidence to support her in 2015 when she started calling herself the only begotten daughter. In Wolli Wonbon, finding true mother was the heart of Jesus' mission. Finding true mother was the Lord of the second Advent's first mission. Her proclamation of Heavenly Parent, January 2013, was in line with the principle. That is the original mother. She was the right person to reveal Heavenly Mother. So here at the bottom I've added, this is interesting, because through Father's biography he mentions his first marriage, 1944. That was before he had disciples, before he went public. So his public mission started in 1945, his first marriage 1944. If we look at the present, true parents, that goes opposite way. So he started his public mission in 1952 after the Wolli Wonbon, and gathering disciples and making a foundation. And that foundation was strong enough, so 1960 he could have true parents holy wedding. So you can see, like, it goes nicely with the text above also, that actually the original plan was first a holy marriage, first the marriage of the Lamb, and then going out publicly. But because things didn't work out, it went another way. So also introduces God as the Heavenly Parent. In human history thus far, God has manifested God self only as the Father, not as the Mother. Yet no one even thought about the fundamental reason why God, who is our parent, has appeared only as our Father, but not as our mother. How must God, the Father, feel to see us, children who do not even know that we have lost our parents? God's pain and sorrow must be beyond description. This is the reason that human beings, God's children, have flowed along the current of history, being unable to resolve their own suffering. So God is our Heavenly Parent, Heavenly Father, and Heavenly Mother. And this is, I think, really speaks today's situation also. The world situation is very dire, you can say. Many conflicts, and this is like how history has been going. And is going. Here's interesting conclusion. So will Wolli Wonbon become the script of the principle in the Chongalguk era? EDP concludes with the second coming. When will he come? How will he come? Where will he come? It teaches at the Christian level, purpose to lead Christians to the Lord of Second Advent. A text of the principle for the end of the New Testament age. True Mother recognizes that a new text is needed, but who can write one that has the authority of true parents? Question mark. Wouldn't it be better to present Father's own words from the Wolli Wonbon? So I think this is a good ending of it's both ending webinar, and I think we can conclude here also. It's I have more to show, but I think this is a good sort of summary. Exposition of divine principle. I mentioned before also. So that means like what the Black Book is teaching, and then comes his comment and that. So please join me in prayer. Dearest Heavenly Parent, true parents, we are so grateful we can share this historical content that True Father was writing 1951, 52, and this is truly a historical text that shows the desperate situation. True Father was almost alone in Busan in South Korea at the very tip of the country, and the North Koreans were pushing on, and the UN forces were pushed back, and this was really a very difficult time, I'm sure, for True Father also. He has said many times that there would not be any Korean War. He had his first try from 1945 been successfully. If he had been received by the Christians as you had planned and as was expected. And still we know that today, 2024, we are standing on the successful foundation of True Parents' victory from 1960 and onwards. So we can be grateful, and we pray for the time of Chongalguk to play out all over the world. Let there be peace, peace in heart, peace between mind and body, peace between husband and wife, children, parents, siblings, and all mankind. We can truly unite in artistic relationship as one family, as you originally planned for Adam and Eve. So I really, really pray that we can take our mission in a responsible way, and I witness 2024, the year of the dragon, the year of multiplication and fruitfulness. We can reach out and make a broad foundation for the unification movement and for your people on earth. This I pray now in our precious names. Bless Center families and members. Adieu. Thank you very much. Thank you all on Zoom. Thank you.